Low-key geek.
Hey,
Hey, he's a low-key geek. He tries to be out there when he wants to be, but hey, he's a low-key
keep it low key.
geek.
Hey, what's poppin', party people? What's going on? It is another Monday here coming to you live from Coronaville. That is the US, New York to be exact. But what's going on, guys? Happy Monday. It's day, I don't know, 557 or whatever the case is of lockdown ish. I think for some of you out there, it's not so much a lockdown situation, and I'll get to that later. But hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys have had a great weekend. It was here in New York, at least we had really great weather. The sun was out, it was warm. I myself was able to, you know, take a stroll around the park here in Queens. Keeping my distance, of course, but a lot of people were out and about. And I'm not quite sure what they're doing about the whole social distancing. I saw a lot of police at the park, which is something that I thought I would not really see, but they were patrolling, and they had signs that said, keep your distance 6 feet away and so on and so forth. But a lot of organized sports, I have to say, a lot of people playing soccer or football, as other people will call it. But yeah, it's been a interesting sight to see. I mean, I did see a good amount of people wearing masks, which is good, but then I saw a lot of people not. So I don't really know what the deal is there. So definitely very interesting to say, none the least. But yeah, great weekend overall. And like I said, I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend yourself. Before I get into some stuff here, just want to say that the live podcast airs every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Fridays at, well, now the new time for Friday will be basically moved to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just playing around with the times, trying to see what will work for myself and my schedule, just to get a good schedule going between the podcasts that I do and the live streaming, game streaming that I do on Twitch. So I just want to make sure that I give myself proper time, to dedicate to both areas. So just want to, make sure I set that correctly. Um, just like I do every week, anytime during the show, if you ever was a time that you wanted to interrupt my flow, obviously I have a list of topics that I like to talk about. But if you have a question or a particular topic that you want me to kind of talk about or go over, go to the link above that you see there, streamlabs.com, lowkey geek one, for as little as $1. Not only will you help support myself in keeping this content going, but you can go ahead and interrupt me with your question and or topic. Of course, do follow me on social to see my weekly schedule, since they do change from time to time. More change in the way of what I play on my Twitch streams. But definitely you can keep updated there. And as always, if you like what you see, follow, subscribe, hit that like button. It helps with the algorithms and so on and so forth. Shitty McCumpants, thanks for joining. I see you just joined in, so appreciate you chiming in there. But for all other questions, I will save some time towards the end of the show to address any questions that you guys may have in the chat. So please fire them away whenever you see fit. So that being said, I think a lot of you went a little nuts on Facebook with this brand new avatar thing. I know I mentioned on Friday that I myself was going to take a step back from Facebook. Kind of tired of a lot of the things I've been getting hit with as far as marketing and videos of stupid pranks, things that they were hoping that would entertain people and so on and so forth. But I myself just got tired of them. And unfortunately, also tired of some of the posts that my friends and colleagues would put out there because of their extreme boredom when it comes to this current pandemic. But I was tagged over the weekend for a nice memory, something that I think Facebook is really good for, to kind of remember this time last year when it was a good friend of mine's wedding that I was a part of. So it was good to remember that. But I see all of you went nuts and participated in this brand new avatar rollout that Facebook had released last week. I guess Facebook is now getting into the whole avatar Bitmoji, craze that everyone else seems to be doing. Um, and it kind of coincides, I guess, with their recent acquisition of Giphy, the famous website that allows you to grab a whole bunch of memes and GIFs from all around the internet. So it seems like they are really trying to improve on their chat functionalities and their texting functionalities. But yeah, I saw a lot of avatars rolling out there. I was hesitant and I'm like, I'm not going to participate in this thing. But for shits and giggles, I went ahead and did my own. And I don't know if it looks like me. To be completely honest with you, I chose not to really spend too much time in worrying about it and really diving deep in there. But you be the judge. You let me know if this is a good uh, avatar cartoon representation of myself. I don't think so. I do wear these beanie hats quite often in the wintertime and all that. But yeah, that is the Facebook avatar version of myself. And that's probably the only time that it's ever going to be shown outside because I am not going to be updating my Facebook profile with this thing. So yeah. So that being said, yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys were doing this weekend outside of, building your Facebook emojis and all that. I, took some time to do an online game session with a good amount of friends. I think there were six of us, and we, spent Friday night, chatting and drinking, and we played Cards Against the Humanity online, through a website. I believe it's called allbads.com or something of that sort. But, you know, if you've played Cards Against Humanity, it's a fun party game to do in front of people, but it proved to be pretty fun online as well. So that went really well, and I think it's something that we might be doing a lot moving forward. We might try to find other card games that we could play online, or just party games in general. There's so much to do out there. So did that. Like I mentioned on Friday, I did watch the YouTube presentation of Prince and the Revolution, the Purple Rain concert from 1985. If you're a fan of Prince, especially from back in the 80s, you will be very, very familiar with his Purple Rain years. And, it was interesting to watch because it was obviously a very old concert, but I've never had the opportunity to see Prince live in person. But he, you know, by all means, he is one of the best performers. Probably you can compare him to Bruno Mars of today, just with the energy and how he kind of demands present on the stage. It was quite a sight to see. Obviously a lot of sexual tones there. He does love to perform with his shirt off and portray a lot of sexual innuendos, so to speak. But huge fan of the music, and it was definitely fun to watch. Nice little throwback concert there. I did have a chance to watch Episode 3 of The Gallery on Disney Plus. They're doing their Mandalorian behind the scenes, and this time it focused on the actors. And it was just really great to watch the actors talk about their experience filming season 1 of The Mandalorian. Um, it just makes me like fiend for season 2. And, I know in the last couple of weeks we've been getting so much news for The Mandalorian. Um, so it'll be interesting to see when season 2 wraps up how they're going to do this behind the scenes gallery once again. But it was nice hearing, Pedro Pascal, Carl Weathers, and Gina Carano talk about their time on the set. And interesting fact that something I didn't even know, Gina Carano never even auditioned for the role. I guess when Favreau and Filoni were kind of putting together their thoughts and idea of her character, they already had her in mind. And according to Pedro Pascal, the storyboards that they had for her all already looked like Gina Carano. So they definitely had her in mind and basically gave her a call, asked her to be on the show, and she said yes. And it was nice to see that her experience on the show boosted her confidence in being an actress. Um, I'm sure if you follow the trades or you read the news in the past, there's been a lot of criticism about her acting, whether or not she could, carry a role, whether it was ancillary or main character. But I think it's safe to say that after seeing her, um, in the season, in the first initial season of Mandalorian, she really held her own. And she did a really great job, I think, in my opinion, of playing the character assigned to her. So it really, really great to watch behind the scenes. I think if you're into that kind of stuff, and if you're just into The Mandalorian, very worth watching and taking some time to check those episodes out. I don't know how many episodes in total it's going to be, but definitely, like I said, worth the watch there. And sticking to Disney Plus, since I was done with that, I did decide to finally catch an episode of Prop Culture. I also mentioned on Friday's show that um, uh, that Rick Moranis had a rare in-person interview that one of that he hasn't really done lately, and he did it on an episode of Prop Culture for Honey I Shrunk the Kids, and it was nice to see him on the screen again. He is, older, just like a lot of the people from back in the day. Of course, we all remember him from his infamous role in Ghostbusters. But it was just nice to see him. And it's nice to see how much he actually appreciates a lot of the work he did in Hollywood, despite him not being in the business for a good amount of time now. So I don't know if the rumors are still true that he's up and willing to come back to the big screen for the next sequel to Honey I Shrunk the Kids, with supposedly Josh Gad playing his youngest son, all grown up. But we'll see. But like I said, it was nice to see him, give a really nice interview and relive those days of him playing the mad scientist in Honey I Shrunk the Kids. Um, as far as movies are concerned, didn't really get to catch any movie, but I did decide to rewatch Monsters Inc. Since I was on Disney Plus, and it was kind of those things where I just got into a rabbit hole where I was like, oh, okay, I just watched this episode of Gallery, I watched Prop Culture. Let me pop in a Pixar movie, and Monsters Inc. was always one of my favorites. And I would say even to this day, it still holds up really well. I still find myself getting very touched by the relationship with Boo and and Mike Wazowski and Sully, or Kitty as she would refer him to. The jokes still land really well with me. Um, it does. It is interesting to kind of watch an older Pixar animated movie nowadays because you could see how much they progressed in their style and animation. So I don't want to say it looks crude, but it does look older. And you can see how much far they advance, especially when you compare it to Onward, which is the latest in Pixar animation. And it's definitely a difference, but it doesn't detract me as a viewer away from enjoying the movie any less. It's just an observation that I had there. So I know everyone's been buzzing about the last two episodes of The Last Dance that came out yesterday. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I am planning to watch it this week. This week, I actually have tasked myself with watching a good amount of programming this week. I have The Last Dance, the final two episodes. I actually do really want to see, because I'm curious to see the Snowpiercer premiere episode, which, based off of what I've seen online, critically hasn't really hit that great with critics, but it did score huge numbers for TNT. I believe it was 3.3 million viewers for the debut episode of that, especially for a show that it apparently took 5 years to produce and put together. So I am definitely very, very curious and interested to see how that show was put together and just how it looks and see how similar it is to the movie. And then I do want to finally watch Extraction, the Netflix movie, written and directed by the Russo brothers and starring Chris Helmsworth of Thor fame. So I definitely want to see, because I've heard nothing but great things about that movie, and I definitely want to check it out. If I have a chance to do so before the Friday's episode, I'll be sure to, give my 2 cents and do my mini reviews of all that. I may decide to do a review of the Last Dance series as a whole, just because I've been loving everything I've seen so far, and I think it would be good to just have a lot of a time allotted just to share my thoughts about all that. Um, Something I didn't get to watch, but something that I thought was extremely fascinating and unique for this time that we live in now, is that Bill Murray and Guy Fieri of, if you know Guy Fieri, not only because of his failed restaurant attempts here in New York, but host of Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives, which was a staple of my viewing pleasure for a long time. And, I've had the chance to go and venture out and check out some of these places he went to. But apparently on Friday, for charity, they had a nacho off, or a nacho competition. Guy Fieri was with his son doing their own nachos, and Bill Murray was remote, and his son, who actually owns a bar in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, here in New York, was the one putting the nachos together, and they had Shaquille O'Neal and Terry Crews be the judges. I don't know exactly how they judged, since they weren't there to taste the nachos, so it looks like they just judged based off of looks. Um, but it looks like Guy Fieri did win. But at the end of the day, it's all for a good cause and for charity. I believe Guy Fieri put together this foundation to kind of help a lot of the small business workers and owners, especially within the restaurant business, to kind of help them with the troubles and struggles that they are currently facing now. So, um, I'll provide a link in the description after the show, and check it out. It was hosted on Facebook, so it's not a YouTube video, but regardless, it's still really worth the watch. So while you guys were, done with your Facebook avatars and, you know, watching what you had to watch on TV, I hope you spent some nice quality time with your family, or by yourself. Like I said, I walked around the park and things of that nature. But the one thing I didn't do is this. Now, this is a photo taken over the weekend here in New York on the Upper West Side. And a lot of you, or maybe not you watching right now or watching the replay, but a lot of people out there decided, hey, the weather's great, it's warm, fuck this whole coronavirus thing. Let's just go out, go to a bar, order takeout drinks, and let's just stay outside the bars and drink in front of everybody and talk, treating it like a Mardi Gras or a block you would find in Memphis, Tennessee. And this is just one of many pictures that I saw come in through over the weekend and this morning. And I do have to say, I'm very, very disappointed in a lot of the fellow New Yorkers here. As you can see in the photos, a lot of them are younger people. So I'm sure they feel like they've had it. They're done with this whole thing. Nothing's ever going to stop me. Nothing's going to stop me now. Well, we'll see in 2 weeks if that's the case. But look, I'm not going to judge people for doing what they're doing. I'll judge him a little bit. I'll definitely rant about it, but this isn't smart. I know as a country and as a state, we're struggling to kind of figure out how can we slowly reopen, get life back to somewhat normalcy. But doing stuff like this is not the right way to do it. I do find it funny how very hypocritical a lot of these people are standing around with masks on, um, but still not keeping 6 feet away from each other. And I think I read a quote this which came from one of these people that said, "Oh, it's kind of hard to drink with a mask on." Well, yes, it is. But I'm sure you young kids will figure out a way and figure out a way to keep yourself and everyone else around you safe, right? Right. So yeah, so just wanted to air my quick disappointment of that. I'm sure we're gonna be seeing a lot more of this to come. It's just unfortunate, but hey, look, at the end of the day, I get it. We've all been cooped up. We've all been, maybe slowly losing our minds here and there, but you know, we just have to do what we have to do to try to keep things safe, keep everyone else around us safe, and make sure that this is not something that spreads even more so. Real quick, Paul programs. No, this is not a new camera. This is the same camera I've been using for the last several weeks. I just adjusted some of the lighting. So I'm hoping that things are looking better. So moving on, some news that kind of dropped over the weekend, and unfortunately, I it does come with another sad bit of news of another passing of a Hollywood legend, and that is the passing of Fred Willard. He passed away over the weekend at the age of 86. I had no idea he was 86 years old. That's pretty crazy. But, he is a hilarious stand up comedian and actor. He spent time with SCTV back in the day, made appearances on the Johnny Carson show. But myself, and I'm sure a lot of you, remember him for his roles in the Christopher Guest movies. He had roles in all of them pretty much, Spinal Tap, Waiting for Guffman, Best in Show, which I think was one of his pinnacle moments, Mighty Wind, and I'm forgetting the For Your Consideration. I think is the last movie in that series there. But every time he was on scene, even if it was just a small part, he was always hilarious, and he was definitely one of the actors really known for improving a lot of his lines. And if you remember him from Best in Show as the announcer of the dog show with his partner, he had a lot of things to say and a lot of comments. And, I could only imagine how everyone on the set would react with a lot of his one liners. I mean, it every time I watch it, I always die laughing and I always have tears in my eyes. I believe it was his character in A Mighty Wind, where he has that line. It's like, "What happened?" He's always like, "Hey, what happened?" And to this day, I still use that line and I say that all the time. And I don't even know if a lot of my friends know where I'm referencing it from, but I love that line. I love him. He will, truly be missed. But age 86, I want to say that, he lived a pretty good life and he left a lot of good memories for us. And, when things are captured on celluloid or on digital, you'll get to relive those memories over and over again. And do yourselves a favor. If you haven't watched any of those movies, I highly recommend that you do because they are some of the most hilarious movies done in like the mockumentary style. Um, Especially Best in Show, which won a lot of critical acclaim. Mighty Wind for me is one of the underdogs. There is not too many people I think talk about that movie, but I do love that movie quite a bit. And Waiting for Guffman, of course, is another classic there. So definitely do check them out. Um, in other news, and this is more about rumors, so to speak, and it comes from the Marvel Universe. A lot of talk about Ghost Rider lately. I'm not quite sure how it came about, but it looks like there are rumors that Marvel is looking to revamp and redo their idea of a Ghost Rider TV series. Now, I know in the past they, if you were watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I wasn't. But if you were, they did introduce Ghost Rider on that show, portrayed by Gabriel Luna. And there were a lot of talks about, taking him and doing a spin-off Ghost Rider series. And I think a lot of people were kind of expecting that to happen, especially for Hulu, which there were a lot of talks about these Marvel specific Hulu programming that was supposed to come out. Ghost Rider was one of them. Hellstrom was another. I believe there were several other ones that were registered for that, like Glyph and Spirits of Vengeance. So when Disney, kind of, took over, and they kind of restructured their TV division. As you know, that they pretty much canceled and closed out all the Netflix programming. Agents of Shield still seems to be on tap and going. I believe it might be their final season coming up, or maybe already came. I don't really know. Again, I don't follow. But it kind of left a lot of the other things, hanging out there, in limbo. Unfortunately, programming like The Runaways, which I loved a lot, was canceled. They had their final third season that kind of like slipped under the radar. Cloak and Dagger, which was always a pair of Marvel characters that I really loved a lot reading as a kid, that kind of went away. So it kind of left us with, all right, well, what's next? Obviously we know Disney Plus is coming out with, their slew of Marvel TV programming. But the bigger question is, what's going to happen with Hellstrom? So Hellstrom apparently started filming in October of last year and wrapped filming in March, right before this whole pandemic. So what's going to happen with that? Are we going to see it? Are they going to probably, ditch it altogether? If we know anything about some of the lingering Marvel character movies like New Mutants, it could possibly still see the light of day, just maybe in a different form or at a different time. We just will never know. But it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen. And I do think Ghost Rider is going to, if they are going to move forward with this, is going to play very heavily in the whole realm of mystics, magic, and spirits. That's one part of the Marvel universe that kind of was helped started by Doctor Strange. And if you're a fan of the comics, I'm sure you remember, Hellstrom was actually a team up of the likes of Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, Moon Knight, and other characters in there. We know there's a Moon Knight show coming out on Disney Plus sometime soon. So how will Ghost Rider play into that? I know Feige was just really, really hell bent on getting something like this together because he kind of likes that realm and side of things, along with the cosmic universe and all that stuff. So, we'll see what happens. And let's see what happens under the new helm there. Yeah, Paul Program's chiming in there with basically exactly some of the same things that I had to say. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what will happen there. It'll be interesting to see how they're going to pull this off if the rumors hold true. Again, it's just rumors. Nothing has been confirmed by either side. So, moving on, like I mentioned before, Mandalorian news just keeps coming out. Now, let me remind everyone here, The Mandalorian has already finished filming. So a lot of this new casting news that's coming out are leaks now. So these are, people leaking out information, or maybe Disney themselves doing it to kind of like draw up the hype. But apparently Timothy Oliphant is another name to kind of throw in there on a slew of casting news that came out for the second season of The Mandalorian. You could add him along with Katie Sackhoff, Rosario Dawson, just to name a few. So the- it's, if you were a fan of Justified and Deadwood, Timothy Oliphant's work there. He has a pretty solid fan base. I am not too familiar with him because I never watched those two series, even though they've been on my queue for a very long time, and I've been dying to kind of try to check it out. But it just goes to show you that they're not holding anything back from season two. So again, with me watching the gallery episodes, hearing all this news come out, hearing the rumors and the possible characters that are returning or making their live action debut, season two is going to be a big one. So I'm definitely interested and excited to see how that's going to all play out. In a surprise bit of news that came out over the weekend too, Umbrella Academy season two was announced, and their release date for season two will be July 31st. I didn't get to watch the entire season of Umbrella Academy. I think I watched the first four episodes, and then life got in the way, and it just something I never had a chance to go back to. But from what I saw, I really, really liked what they were doing with that series. I've read some of the comics back in the day, and I thought it was very interesting to kind of have like another spin to the whole mutant family or group of people put together because of their abilities. You're run by some sort of government agency or some sort of secret agency or something like that. But I really, really liked what they were doing there. The big name in that series, of course, is Ellen Page. Ellen Page, I love everything she does, whether it was starring in Inception or in some of her other indie fairings. Of course, I'll never forget her when I first saw her in Juno back in the day. But the way that the announcement was done was very similar to how a scene from, I believe it was episode one, where they all were dancing to a classic 80s song sung by Tiffany, and kind of all grouped together on what looked like everyone doing something from home on Zoom. So, July 31st, mark your calendars, a season two of Umbrella Academy coming out on Netflix. And I'll be sure to try to catch up by then. Obviously, I have a lot of time now, and so do you. Um, Sticking with Netflix too, in case you didn't know, all three seasons of Avatar: The Last Airbender are now on Netflix. I know me and my friends were all very excited about that. If you haven't had a chance to watch that series, now is a great time for you to catch all three seasons there. I've only watched, believe it or not, the first season. Again, one of those things where I watched it, I liked it, life got in the way, and it kind of just faded away from my queue and all that. But now that it's all there and ready for me to kind of consume in binge form, I will make the time to finally finish it up and watch the entire series in one shot. And lastly, in kind of streaming TV news, CBS All Access announced that they are putting together a new Star Trek series called Strange New World, and the focus this time is going to be around Pike and Spock. It sounds like it may have been a little spin off of Discovery, or where things are with Discovery right now. I will confess I have not watched an episode of Discovery. I just hadn't had a chance or the time, nor do I have CBS All Access. But I did do the free trial like I mentioned before, but I used that time to really watch Picard, season one of Picard, which I really liked. And if you're interested in my thoughts there, you could go refer to a previous episode, and season one of The Twilight Zone, which I really dug as well. So, with season two of The Twilight Zone coming up, this new Star Trek series on the horizon, Picard season two just around the corner. I don't know if it's enough for me to kind of go back and maybe get a subscription to CBS All Access, or if I'm going to do another free trial under a different account just to secretly watch everything I want. But I'm sure I'm not the only one doing that out there. So, just real quick, Soundwave watch party. I'm assuming you're saying that for Avatar: The Last Airbender. I would totally be down for that. Again, I know you, for a fact, are a huge fan of that series. You're the one who actually brought it to my attention back in the day when it was airing on Nickelodeon. So, something that we could think about for sure in doing. Um, Moving on to more gaming fare or gaming news. Um, Kind of slow over the weekend, nothing really too crazy to go about. And even looking into kind of the release schedule for this week, not a lot of stuff coming out. We had like a few remasters coming out, some indie games coming out. Nothing too crazy, which is, I guess, kind of a breath of fresh air with a lot of the gaming news that came out last week. But interesting enough, something that hit on Friday that I was not expecting, especially with what they announced earlier in the year because of the coronavirus and all that. But the TurboGrafx Mini, Konami, who I didn't even know was responsible for putting this little thing together, is coming out this Friday, the 22nd. So really, really interesting that they kind of just all of a sudden, surprised all of us and kind of pushed up the release date for this. I had a feeling that this was something that they may eventually do because several weeks ago, or maybe even longer than that, a lot of people online already had copies, already had hardware in front of them, and they were doing reviews on YouTube. So I was watching a couple of the reviews on YouTube on the TurboGrafx MIDI, and I'm like wondering, wow, they must have these readily available for some bizarre reason, and they just decided that they were going to push the launch date to end of the year. But now you'll be able to get your hands on one of those on Friday. It's available for pre-order on Amazon. As soon as I heard the news, I pre-ordered mine immediately because it was already on my shopping list. It was something that I was eagerly anticipating because, believe it or not, the TurboGrafx 16 was a system that was very dear to my heart. I know it didn't really get a lot of attention in the US. And, very, very tough competition between Nintendo and Sega, who were, kings of the nest at the time and king of the space. But I remember my first exposure of the TurboGrafx 16 was actually at the infamous and long gone, at least in its previous form, FAO Schwartz, where I was there one weekend with my mom, and they had a little booth set up where you could demo the TurboGrafx 16, and they had Bonk's Adventure playing on it. And I was eagerly just awaiting my turn to try it out, and I got on it, and I started playing it, and then 2 hours later, my mom comes back and says, "You're still playing this thing?" I'm like, "Mom, I think I'm going to beat this game here in the store." But unfortunately, we had to go. So I handed off the controller to the person next to me. A lot of people were watching because they were surprised how far I was getting. Spoiler alert: Bonk's Adventure is not a difficult game, really. It was very easy, and it's very beatable within several hours. But that's what kind of garnered my love for the system, and I eventually got myself one. The TurboGrafx, which was referred to as the PC Engine in Japan, actually saw more popularity in Japan. No surprise there. But the great thing about the Mini is that it does have a PC Engine mode where you could kind of switch it to PC Engine mode, and you have PC Engine titles available for you to play, which I'm sure a lot of us Americans, us here outside of Japan, never even had a chance to see or touch. So I thought that was a really, really sweet addition to the TurboGrafx Mini. So if that is something that you're interested in, by all means, I highly recommend that you pre-order one now and get yourself into that mix. And then something that a bit of news that I read about over the weekend that, you know, probably just was never on my radar at all. Um, Full Throttle. Now, if you're familiar with Full Throttle, the LucasArts PC game that came out many years ago, I want to say it came out sometime maybe in, well, you know what? Instead of me guessing, why don't just look it up? Because it is going to coincide with the bit of news that I wanted to announce. But, and math is not my strong suit, so it's not something that I want to embarrass myself in. But Full Throttle came out in April of 1995. So that means it's celebrating its 25th anniversary. And it's kind of amazing to believe that it's been 25 years since this game came out. And I want to say it was one of the last in the ever popular point and click genre type of gaming that I really fell in love with. And it was the way the animation, the way you had to solve the puzzles, the characters, it was just so well done. And I remember not even owning it myself, but I actually played it at a friend's house. This was, I think, either my last, yes, this was, I graduated high school, and then I had a classmate who was still 1 year more to graduate from high school, and she always had a bunch of cats in her home, and she went away on vacation with her mom, and I was asked to babysit her cats. So what did I do? I went to her place, I fed her cats, and I played Full Throttle on her PC because she happened to have a copy of it. And I was able to play through the whole game, and again, I fell in love with it. Um, the PlayStation Store and Sony, they released a remastered version of it. I forget when, maybe it was like a couple of years ago or sometime like there. But it is something that I do own, and because it's this 25th anniversary, I have decided that on Friday for my gaming stream, I will pay tribute to Full Throttle and I will play the remastered version on Friday. So I get to relive those memories and those moments. I haven't played it on the PlayStation yet, so we'll see how it plays out. I'm sure it's going to be pretty easy to get into, but again, it's just a point and click game. So I'm really excited to relive those memories of Full Throttle goodness. So um, if you have the time, check me out on Twitch, and you could see me stream it on Friday. Real quick, Mephistus, main character looked like Bruce Campbell. Yes, yes, he did. If they were ever to do a sequel, which I know there were rumblings of a sequel that they wanted to do, it would have been nice if they kind of casted him as one of the voice actors there. I believe the voice actors for the PC game, let me quickly look in here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it in time, but um, regardless to say the voice actors were really really well done, and actually, believe it or not, here it is. Um, the one of the main villains of the game, Adrian Ripberger, was actually voiced by Mark Hamill. So Mark Hamill again showing his voice acting talent in a lot of different genres. So it's nice to see that. But yeah, I will check it out. Soundwave Full Throttle is a classic. Love it. And I'm glad you pre-ordered your TurboGrafx Mini. Join the fray and let's enjoy. And you have a little bit of interesting news here. Ghostbusters on the PlayStation for PS4 in the PSN store is now going for $12. So again, another classic that if you haven't played it when it was released many years ago, they did come out with a remastered version. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Soundwave. I don't think multiplayer is still available. I know that was something that they were working on, but I remember back in the day, Soundwave and I actually played multiplayer and co-op for the original release, and we had a lot of fun with that. So, if it has multiplayer, I'm all in, and then maybe we could do that again, like we did back in the day. Um, Mephistus, I'm about to order. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Make sure you clear that with your wife before you jump in there. You don't want any problems in the household. Another bit of news that I did forget to mention, and something that I did find interesting, especially in this time that we live in now, where a lot of productions were halted in Hollywood because of the coronavirus situation, and some series, their seasons were kind of held in limbo. I know some shows just ended to where they ended, and people are now waiting to see when production can ramp back up and kind of, to kind of carry on where things, go on from there. But if you're familiar with The Blacklist, they aired their season finale, and what they did is that they animated it. They went ahead and they decided, we want to make sure that we close out the season well. Obviously, we can have everybody do their voices from home. Why don't we just go ahead and animate it so that we could at least have a closure to this season? So they gone ahead, animated. It was released over the weekend, and the animation style is very, very similar to those cell shaded type games. If you ask me right now, it reminds me of that John Wick Hex game that I played a little bit with over the weekend. Kind of like Killer 7, another game that kind of reminds me of this type of, graphic style. Um, Scanner Darkly, very well put there, Soundwave. But, I thought that was a brilliant move on their part, to at least have an animated version of the series season finale. The series is still continuing. But there you go. So that at least it gives the fans something to watch and make sure that they can close the season out. So if you do watch The Blacklist, or if you haven't heard of The Blacklist, it is a show that highly regarded as a good show. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but it's nice to see that Hollywood is being creative with what they need to do in order to fulfill their obligations for TV. And this could this be a trend that we might see moving on in the future? I don't know, but it is interesting that there's an option for that, and I think they did a really brilliant job there. So, I think that's pretty much the majority and the bulk of the major news that I wanted to talk about. One last bit of news, which is news more for me. I'm going to be selfish a little bit, um, and this Thursday, March 21st, is the 40th anniversary of Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. And for anyone that knows me, one knows I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and two knows that Empire is my favorite movie in the entire series of all Star Wars movies, and it does kind of break my top five movies of all time. So my memories, and I mentioned this before, in a previous podcast, but especially how I got into Star Wars, my first exposure to Star Wars. But I recall my first memories of watching Empire Strikes Back was, a lot of fear and dread, because I was a kid, and the entire, movie was a lot of bad news for our cast of characters. You basically had the rebels running the whole time. They were hiding, they were escaping, either the Empire, escaping a crazy, worm-like creature from an asteroid. You had the first time that all the cast of characters were separated and they were off doing their own thing. Luke was training on Dagobah with Yoda. And Yoda was a force to be reckoned with. He was a puppet, but he was like a fierce puppet and a kind of weird puppet that was hard to understand. All goofy at first, but then when he became serious, he became serious. Training Luke in the ways of the Jedi and the Force, and then you have the Cloud City, where Han was thinking he was meeting up with a friend, only to now find out that he was going to get betrayed, because Lando signed a deal with Darth Vader and the Empire, and things were changing every moment that Darth Vader is deemed necessary. Han was captured, frozen in carbonite. Luke finally comes, tries to rescue his friends, loses a hand, and finds out that Darth Vader is his dad. So all that done, Luke throws himself off into the abyss to be left dangling outside the underbelly of a Cloud City structure. Now, granted, he did get rescued by Chewbacca and Leia there, with Lando in tow. But where's Han? What's going to happen with Han? Where's the rebellion? Things were in dire straits. And the movie ends that way. The movie ends that, nothing good for our heroes. And, only time will tell what's going to happen from there. And if the series were to end there, how devastating would that have been? To kind of end on such a sour note like that. And I know there's been debates about it relentlessly and endlessly, which is the better one, Empire or Return of the Jedi. Look, they're both great. Return of the Jedi had great closure to that arc of the trilogy. Um, Make fun of the Ewoks all you want. If you play Star Wars Battlefront 2, they're a force to be reckoned with, and I understand now more than ever. Um, but Empire for me was just always that pinnacle movie, and you could kind of see it how different the movie was put together. This was a movie that wasn't directed by George Lucas. It was directed and co-written by a different person, Irving Kershner, and he definitely likes it dark. He likes things to be dire, and it shows. And I tend to gravitate towards movies like that a little bit more. Kind of like everything's in peril. How are our heroes and cast of characters going to find their ways out of it? So, very well done in my opinion. Still holds true today. I can still watch it, and I will still be glued to the TV every time I watch it because it was just really well done, really well done, and I think some of the best acting in a Star Wars movie that I've seen. Um, and you could debate me on that too. That's fine. There's been a recent love of the prequels, and I think mainly it has a lot to do with the Clone Wars TV series, Rebels, because there were a lot of throwbacks to the prequels back then, and I think it kind of gives a new appreciation, especially for an older audience that really hated the prequels. That okay, I can understand why this is like that and why that makes sense. And, we can kind of forgive. Time heals all, right? But also, the generation that grew up with the prequels as their first exposure to Star Wars are all grown up now. And now they're the ones that are promoting and talking a lot about it, just like how we spoke about the original trilogy. So, at the end of the day, Star Wars is Star Wars. It's still fun, and it should be fun. Yeah, we could debate about it and all that, but you have a serious, fun conversation about it. Don't be a dick. Don't call people out. Don't call people names just because they have a different opinion from you. But I know the fandom can be toxic at times, but at the end of the day, I don't want it to ruin the love of a beloved franchise of Star Wars. So Empire Strikes Back, 40th anniversary. I was really looking forward to Star Wars Celebration this year because it would have been heavy on Empire Strikes Back content and tributes and celebrations. So it's unfortunate, this was the year for me that I would have really loved and enjoyed Star Wars Celebration. Not because I was going to be there with my friends and all that, and not because I was going to be there to celebrate Star Wars as a whole, but Empire Strikes Back would have been heavily in rotation as far as the theme there. So I'll find ways to celebrate it on my own. And who knows, maybe I'll do like a watch party of Empire Strikes Back and stream it. But we'll see. But I will definitely take time this week to relive and enjoy the movie. And maybe in Star Wars Battlefront 2, I will play the massive Hoth battle, the Galactic Assault battle, or whatever you want to call it, which I think is 40 players, all on Hoth, all going crazy. That could be a lot of fun. So that being said, now if this was a normal situation and things were back to normal, or things were normal and nothing ever happened, one of the things that I've always enjoyed talking about was weekend releases, box office numbers, and the like. Now, as I'm sure all of you are aware, there are no releases really out there in the theaters because theaters are closed. However, last week around the country, some theaters were slowly reopening in certain states that were allowing it. So I do actually have some box office numbers to share with you. But along with that, I want to, on a weekly basis, review what are the top shows or movies streaming on Netflix and what is the top video on demand movies for purchase or rental that you can find through whatever service you use, whether it's Google Play, iTunes. I feel like the majority of you probably use iTunes, so that is where my sources are coming from mostly. But let's go into box office review. So, top five from the box office this past weekend, and you're not going to be familiar with a lot of these titles. I won't be surprised. But number one, you have The Wretched, with is an independent horror movie. This past weekend, believe it or not, it did gross $91,000. And it was open in 21 theaters. Now, these theaters include also drive-ins that are readily open and available across the country. So you have The Wretched. Number two, you have How to Build a Girl, which is an independent comedy film, coming of age comedy, um, which stars. Let me see. I had the info here. Excuse me for a moment, but it stars Beanie Feldstein. If you are familiar with the movie Booksmart, that's kind of where she came into prominence there. So she finds herself in another coming of age comedy, grossing $32,052 in 9 theaters open across the country. Alice, which is an independent comedy. I know it looks like something that's kind of raunchy, but it looks like it's said to be a comedy. Grossed $5,000, opened in 58 V theaters. Now, let me explain what V theaters are. V theaters, basically, what that means is that there are some theater chains, not really any of like the major ones like AMC or Regal, but there are some that allow people to buy tickets online to watch the movie from their home through a streaming service, maybe something that they have their own proprietary streaming service, or if they teamed up with another one. So this is how those numbers are counted when I read up the numbers.com and how they count those things. So Alice open in 58 V theaters across the country. Number four is Circles, which is a documentary coming in, grossing at just under $5,000, opened in 3 theaters across the country. And number five is an animated movie called Strike. It's not about bowling, grossing just shy under $1,500, opened in 2 theaters across the country. So yeah, not surprised if you're not familiar with any of these titles, but that's okay. You're not alone. Next, we have what is popular as far as video on demand according to iTunes. So iTunes top 10 movies here. No surprise, Scoob is number one. I did mention on Friday that this was like one of the more legit releases to come out for video on demand last week. So that came in at number one. Number two, you have Uncut Gems, the Adam Sandler dramedy. I don't know if you want to call it a dramedy, but it is a thrill ride from beginning to end. I saw it when it was out in theaters. Definitely worth the watch if you have the stomach for it, because it will drive your anxiety up the roof for sure. Number three, Bad Boys for Life, which was one of the last few movies to see a theatrical release before the whole pandemic. I have yet to see it, but definitely something I want to see. Number four, Capone, which is another new movie that came out last week. If you saw one of my last episodes, this is from director Josh Trank, who has had a lot of comments come out to the press this past couple of weeks about his time on Fantastic Four and his potential Boba Fett movie for Star Wars. If you are a watcher of SCN Live or the SCN Network, Christian Harloff had a really amazing one-on-one interview with Josh Trank last week over video, so definitely check it out. I heard Capone is an interesting tale of the last few days of Al Capone, And I think a lot of misconceptions on like how he spent those last days. Apparently, he was crazy and mad and spent it from his home. He didn't die because of any kind of drugs or foul play, but apparently he was deteriorating from his certain mental neuroses. And he had some physical ailments that were eating away from him. So something that sounds to me like I want to check out. And Tom Hardy plays the role of Al Capone, and I'm a huge fan of Tom Hardy, so definitely something I want to check out. Number five, Sonic the Hedgehog, one of the more recent and kind of acceptable movies to put on your top video game movie adaptations. Paul of Paul Programs claims that it is a really good movie. I have yet to see it, but I have heard good things about it. Number six, The Invisible Man, the new iteration of this movie that sparks a lot of more conversation about the potential of revamping the Universal Cinematic Universe because of how well this movie was done. Number seven, an oldie here, surprisingly enough, Tombstone. Pulling it back from the archives. This is one of those famous Western movies that has a huge cast of actors and actresses in here. I know Val Kilmer is one of them. Kurt Russell. So definitely a Western classic here. Number eight is Fantasy Island, which is the horror take on the infamous 80s TV program where visitors are trapped on an island on vacation and shit goes to hell. The Gentleman, which is the latest in Guy Ritchie, that is at number 9. And number 10, Vin Diesel and Bloodshot, his take on the famous comic book character there. So those are what's popular right now on iTunes. And for Netflix, top 10 streaming. Number 1, we have The Wrong Missy, which is a new David Spade movie. I know Adam Sandler is a producer on this, and I'm pretty sure it has to do with, it's under the Adam Sandler umbrella there. That's in at number 1. Number 2 is the series Dead to Me. I know they released their latest season just last week, so that is top on the list there. Number 3, Riverdale, the darker take on the famous Archie comic strip. Number 4 is White Lines. Not too familiar with this series. I believe it might be a series in Spanish, kind of like I forget the name of the others popular show right now, but that's number 4. Number 5 is Outer Banks, again a series I'm not too familiar with. Number 6 is Public Enemies, the classic gangster flick there with Johnny Depp. I think the reason why this hit the top 10 is because it was released on Netflix for the first time last week. So, people who are hankering and hungry for some action, some gangster action, or those who just love Johnny Depp, that comes in at number 6. Number 7 is John Henry, which is a modern telling of the very famous folk fairy tale of John Henry. It stars Terry Crews. Number 8 is Magic for Humans, which is just a magician type series. Number 9, Trial by Media, which is a docuseries about the media and how it affects a lot of outcomes in infamous crime trials and so on. And number 10 is Have a Good Trip, Adventures in Psychedelics, which is a documentary. Just reading about it looks more like a mockumentary that stars a lot of famous comedians like Sarah Silverman and so forth. And it talks about, I guess, psychedelics. So that is what's top streaming on Netflix. If you have happened to watch any of these, by all means, let me know. I'm very curious to see what your thoughts are. There are some here on the list that like I mentioned, I am interested to catch for myself, hopefully sometime soon. But that being said, that's the hour, and that's the show. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thanks again for those who participated in the comments. Always happy to have you join me in on this. I'll be back live on Wednesday with Paul of Paul Programs at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our Nerds to Men podcast. So definitely check it out there. And the Low-Key Geek Live Show will be back on Friday, new time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I do my review of all that is pop culture and news from the week. You can catch my Twitch streams Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Next stream will be Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I dive right back into Star Wars Battlefront 2. So until next time, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, be kind to one another, wash your hands, wear a mask, and just be good and make this week a memorable one. All right, I know times are tough, but you guys can do it. Hang in there, we're all in it together. So it's Renee, Low-Key Geek, signing off. Peace.